Welcome to FootballGameplan.com, where football makes sense. I'm Emery Hunt, the czar of the playbook. Bring you our 2013 CFL West Final Preview between the Saskatchewan Roughriders and the Calgary Stampeders. Now let's take a look at some keys to victory for both teams, starting with the Roughriders.
Well, what a valiant effort last week by quarterback Darian Durant versus the BC Lions, utilizing his legs to pick up crucial first downs in the fourth quarter. That was an impressive output by that young man. Now, this week versus Calgary, working a quick game with Weston Dressler and Corey Sheets on the screens, in my opinion, could be successful. That'll alleviate a lot of that pressure off that offensive line and combat the pressure of the Calgary Stampeders. And you also want to force Calgary's linebackers to become run defenders. They want to get after the quarterback. They want to get pressure on Durant, force them to stop the run, and you can have a chance offensively. Defensively, I believe the Riders have to box in the running game, but remember their fundamentals in tackling. Last week versus BC, there were a lot of missed tackles versus Andrew Harris. That can't happen versus John Cornish, otherwise he's going to make you pay. And the hands have to stay active at the line of scrimmage. Kevin Glenn is a guy that tends to flatline passes, so you can get some tips, which could ultimately result into interceptions. And first down defense, in my opinion, would be the time to take a gamble. You want to go tight on the corner, send that extra guy in the box versus the run, and force Glenn to throw the football deep down the field to where your help is and where you're most talented back there in the secondary. Now let's move over to Calgary in this ballgame, and working all options early in the passing game outside of McDaniel and Price will be key. Guys like Brad Sinopoli and Jabari Arthur are vital this week for the Stamps passing attack that may have the services of future Hall of Famer Nick Lewis. But this is a football team that leans on its ground game with the CFL's leading rusher in John Cornish, who finished with over 1,800 yards this season, and he has had some big games this year versus Saskatchewan. Efficient play at the quarterback position is the name of the game for both Kevin Glenn and Drew Tate. Now, Glenn will get the start, and he has done a solid job keeping this offense on pace all season long while avoiding the big mistake, and he arguably has had just as good of a season as Toronto's Ricky Ray. Defensively, the Stamps have one of the better pressure defenses in the game. They do a great job of clogging running lanes with stunts and forcing quick short throws, as well as putting the quarterback on the ground with the CFL leading 63 sacks. The biggest concern would be with that type of aggressiveness, it leaves you vulnerable in your ability to remain gap disciplined, and that can't happen this week versus Durant or Corey Sheets because they will be able to gash you on the ground. The X factor for the Riders in this ballgame will be the front seven versus the run. They have to be able to get John Cornish on the ground and make this a Kevin Glenn versus Darian Durant game. Otherwise, they're going to have some problems. The X factor for the Stamps will be their defensive pressure. You look at Charleston Hughes, Cordero Law. Both guys combined for 32 sacks on the season, and this team this year versus Durant has sacked him 13 times. So obviously, defensive pressure will be huge in this ballgame. Now, here are some coaching points for both teams in this ballgame. For Saskatchewan, they have to be able to take chances early on defense. That goes a long way in helping you stop the running game or slow down John Cornish and get those guys off the field. And you must avoid the mental mistakes, more in particular on the defensive side of football. No offsides, no personal fouls, no pass interferences, especially when you're on the road versus a team like Calgary. And that offensive line has to do a much better job in pass protection. Like I've said before, they've sacked Darian Durant 13 times so far this season. They have to be able to keep him upright in the pocket if they want to have a chance. And for the Stamps in this ballgame, you want to slow down the pace of the game. You can do that exceptionally well with John Cornish in the backfield and Kevin Glenn being efficient throwing the football, and the receivers and run after the catch. That's going to be huge in this ballgame. They have some big-time receivers in Marquez McDaniel, Maurice Price. They may even get Nick Lewis back. All guys, in my opinion, excel after the catch, and they're going to have to chew up the yards because that also helps Kevin Glenn be much more efficient. And you have to reestablish the line of scrimmage on defense, stopping the running game and being able to collapse that pocket. That's how you're able to slow down what Saskatchewan wants to do offensively. One of the more dominant defensive linemen of his era, Ed McQuarters, played for Saskatchewan from 1966 to 1974, in which he became a three-time CFL All-Star, 10 fumble recoveries in his career, and was inducted into Canadian Football Hall of Fame in 1988. Not only was Alan Pitts a dangerous receiver, he was also the most consistent. Here's the guy that played his entire career in Calgary from 1990 to 2000 and is the third all-time leading receiver in CFL history, a six-time All-Star that caught 966 passes for nearly 15,000 yards and 117 touchdowns. I like the Stampeders in this ballgame. The way they play football is tailor-made for success. They can run it very well. They have the best rusher in the game in John Cornish, and on defense, they dominate the line of scrimmage, and this defensive line of Calgary has done a great job all season long versus this Rough Riders offensive front. So I look for Calgary's defense to do a great job versus Durant at offensive attack of Saskatchewan and ride the legs of John Cornish back to the Grey Cup championship. And I also want to give a huge shout out to the CFL fan forums for always showing football game plan support.